Dana, so be honest with me. How many LinkedIn connections do you have that you couldn't pick out of a lineup?
Honestly, probably hundreds, if not more. I'm looking at it right now because I knew you were going to ask me this question. I have over 1,300 connections on LinkedIn, and we all have seasons of where we accept almost every request. And now I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. I might get 100 total that I could recognize.
That is me. I remember, I think it was like last year, of trying to online network. I'm like, okay, this person seems to be in my niche or my wheelhouse. I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna connect. But like that just became super overwhelming because now I have all these connections and I'm questioning on like where did they even come from? Did I send the request? Did they send the request? Like I have no idea.
I feel like that's also important. That's funny. Of like, who even how did we even get connected? Like where was this at? But I feel like this is where we get networking wrong and we focus more on quantity as opposed to
Uh-huh.
quality. So like we went through these seasons of robo sending connections or accepting connections, but not to hate on these platforms, but it's wrong. And if you're tuning in now, we're about to blow everything up on what you think about networking and how to do it in real life as
Hmm.
well as online.
Yes, exactly. When we start our business or we do anything, get a job, you're going to school, whatever you're doing, you're wanting to make connections, but it's like, how do you even do that? I know when I started my business a year in, I didn't know what networking was. I had no idea. I didn't know that you can go in person and meet people that have their own business too. And I always thought networking was about, here's my service, buy from me. No one taught me, and I had to learn. That's what I really thought it was, and I thought that's how it was online. Like as a business owner, we are sending all these cold pitches, and then I quickly realized that is not the way it is. That's not the way it should be. But I know that all of us do have different ways on how we want to network. But I really believe in connection and building relationships first.
Which, if you think about it, is what networking actually is. So, what you thought was networking when you first started is actually marketing. But networking involves building and maintaining relationships with others. And yes, it's meant to be done in a way that leads to a mutual beneficial sales or collaboration of some sort, referral sources. Like there's a lot of different levels that you can utilize your network. But ultimately, the foundation of networking is building real relationships, not just grabbing coffee to pick your brain, though sometimes I do consider that networking because I it's mutually beneficial. I'll share my things, they can pick my brain, and then I pick theirs. But ultimately, it's actual human connection that's going to change the way you do business, who you meet, and how you grow. Side note with the marketing is where you focus on the promotion of your products or services to drive sales. And that's where, like, I think the gray area comes in play because when I'm networking, I want to pick someone's brain. I want to learn from them. I want to see what they're working on. And that in turn will help me with my, how to achieve my business goals or customer engagement goals or whatever. But effective networking is the foundation that can lead to successful marketing. So you need good networking, good human connection to fuel the marketing aspects, in my non requested opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what I started doing, because instead of making mass connections or, follower like trying to follow all these people, I started to take a step back and what I started doing, because obviously when you're online, I'm gonna use LinkedIn for example, because that's where I hang out most of the time. I try to do at least one connection in a day, not 10. I know people say like connect with 10, 15 people a day. But here's the thing. This is from coming from my experience. Everybody has their own experience. But what I realized is that I want to know the person. And sometimes I'll go to like their website, read their blog posts, listen to their podcast, because I want to whatever I can consume online. Obviously, that's not gonna I'm not gonna know the person all around, but having something to kind of make a conversation like, hey, like I really loved what you talked about in this podcast, or I really loved your blog post. And I've made connections that way. I've a while ago, someone actually reached out to me. They're like, hey, I have this podcast. I'm like, hey, we have this podcast too. So like it's like the back and forth instead of, "Hey, like, I love your podcast. Here's the services I offer you." Because I get those all the time. Everybody gets those all the time, and I think that's obviously that's part of business, and I've actually, like, made connections and actually got, like, what do you call them? Coffee chats and, like, had conversations, which to me is fun. I love it.
I think it can lead to places that it allows you to stay open minded, because if you leave open that room, then you don't know where it's going to take you. I think if you go with one expectation, you're going to have that surface level conversation in your mind and it's going to lead you nowhere. So I just think, since we all have felt like that, I think we can all recognize when someone didn't do their due diligence of reaching out, or before they reached out. So it's obviously not genuine. You're just a number on a spreadsheet of someone to reach out to, where, you basically are standing on a stage and throwing out all your business cards and hoping that something sticks.
Yeah.
Like,
You're like,
hoping that
"Here,
someone
take
will
one,
send
take
that
one."
connection request and then rinse and repeat. So, and then if someone does book a call, it's exhausting because you already know they're not like the best fit. Like, I've been through that when I first started my business, and I kept thinking like, what am I doing wrong? But it wasn't necessarily me as a person, it was just my whole approach. And as I've been going through a season of pivots anyway, I just realized that I didn't want to talk to anyone and everything, or anyone and everyone, about what I was doing. Like, I wanted to talk to people who I trust and who were not necessarily on the same page as me, but understood who I was looking for, so that either I could work with them directly or they could immediately connect me with someone, and vice versa. Cause like, I don't want to connect with someone and I have no one to give them. So that takes the loneliness out of it, but it also takes the terrifying approach, because you're not saying, "Help me, help me." It's, "I respect you and I love what you're doing. I love the energy that you're putting into the universe, and I want to tap into that by also giving energy to it and then letting
Mhm.
some of it rub off on me."
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so funny? I saw this somewhere, social media somewhere. It's like networking is like dating.
It
Okay,
is.
I have my thoughts on that. It's like, okay, my husband and I have been together for almost 15 years now. I don't know what that looks like as dating, like when you are in the trenches of looking for somebody to date. Obviously, you want to get to know them and this and that, but I personally can't get behind that. I know some people can. That's a hard thing for me to grasp, probably because I'm not in that realm. So I'm trying to figure out like different approach that would help me, and I find myself very friendly and literally I hope your day is going good. And people don't like that. Like, hey, like we connected on Threads or LinkedIn. I hope that you're doing well, whatever, insert your conversation piece. But at first I've seen people say that they're like, don't say that to me. You don't want to hear it. We're not on a personal level like that. But no, for me personally, I really hope that you're having a good day. Why would I hope that you're having a bad day? Like it makes no sense.
Fair. Usually, I mean, if they say that, then I always just say, "I actually do want to know." But I started asking different questions to make it feel like less small talk. So
Oh,
let's dive into like more practical ways of deepening that connection, because I think people hear things like that. And it's just like, again, it's like a robot. If you feel, not that that was the intention, but it just feels like, oh, it's just another thing. So for me, I've changed my questions of, what do you have going on this season? Like, what do you have going on? To, what are you super excited about this month or quarter? Because I work with wedding professionals. So it's usually season. What are you excited about this season? Where are you traveling to? If they're a destination wedding planner, like, this has been huge within my networking because it sparks curiosity, like, especially with wedding planners. They love talking about the designs they're doing. And so it opens up that door and lets them share more of their part, or if they say, oh, I'm really working on this but it's frustrating because XYZ, so like they're naturally going to want to share something. Or if they say, I have 3 back-to-back weddings, well, that's already, I can tell you, overwhelming to anyone. I don't care how seasoned you are. If you have back-to-back weddings and they're full
Yeah.
service, that's a lot of details to keep track of, and I can already tell you're overwhelmed. So I won't even pitch you a sale. I won't even try to book a coffee chat with you. Like, I'm going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
And I will offer my podcast or this podcast instead, because while you're traveling, you can get to know me while you listen to our podcast. And
Exactly.
then I'll follow up with you in the off season and say, did you survive? How was it? Did you enjoy the podcast? Is there anything that you felt was missing? And that one helps me. But then I get another follow up chance to, like, deepen that relationship without any sales conversations whatsoever. But it is still boosting my visibility. So that is ultimately the goal for me.
And that's the way that you should do it instead of bombarding them like, "Hey, I know you didn't get back to me yesterday, but I'm still here," like, annoying them essentially, like, every single day, sending them a message, sending them an email. And I think that's where people kind of forget is we all have lives. We all are doing different things in our life, in our business, in our personal life. We have kids, we have a family, we're doing this, we're doing that. Like for me, if someone's sending me a message every single day, twice a day, I get that a lot. I'm like, no, 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 no. Yeah,
That's
I'll,
surprising.
yeah, like more pitching, not relationship building. And it's just like, no, like why? What's the point? And that's you're not building trust within that person. If you're constantly like sending them a message, like you said, Dana, like send them like a resource that they can read or listen to. And so when they are not busy, especially knowing the type of industry that they're in, you get an idea. So like if I were to
Hmm.
talk to like a podcast potential client in the future and they're like, yeah, I have all these clients and, doing all this, like, explain to me, like, they're busy, like, let me take a step back and let them, like, take a breather and kinda sit with it for a minute because if you're gonna keep bothering them, then they're definitely not want to build that relationship with you.
So, one thing with networking, I'll say with that, and it's something that I've actually been talking in a few masterminds lately. So, perfect timing on this conversation is the small touches. And that's where one thing from a marketing standpoint to remember is it is small touches, and it's 7 to 12 touch points before someone's ready to buy from you across 5 platforms, and like 2 hours of soaking in your content, basically, in a rough roundabout, which sounds overwhelming, but as long as you're not trying to do it 2 times a day, every day for 14 days and expect them to want to work with you, it's perfect. It'll work. And it's not overwhelming. And it allows you to amplify your growth. And I know there are seasons where, like, we have to have a sale as of yesterday. I understand that. But if you are doing this in a slow and steady way, as a balanced method of networking and growing your business, you're going to see a compound effect in your efforts. So when you take the time to invest in deep relationships, you're not just gaining contacts in your Rolodex or your Google contacts thing. You're gaining people who will refer you without being asked. What that means is they're going to say your name in rooms that you may never even have the opportunity to put a foot into. and they're going to celebrate your wins when you need to celebrate, and they're going to tell you the truth when you're off track, and they're going to show up when things get hard. And so networking is not just about sales, it's about building a community. These are invaluable insights that you need, or we need as entrepreneurs, because I can't tell you how many times I've avoided a massive mistake because someone in my network that I trusted enough said, "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea." Or they've asked me off the wall thinking questions that made me pause long enough to be like, "Oh, maybe that's not right. Maybe this, maybe that." Or it's been the opposite where I think I'm being too weird and off the wall with my services because every time I talk to someone, they're like, "I don't know anyone that does Pinterest." So is it too off the wall? And then I'm reminded that no, this is brilliant. People need this. Keep doing it. And it helps me invest in my success over time and not just to, oh, I have all these vain connection metrics that does nothing for me.
What I love about building relationships and building your network, whether that's like even just people you want to hang out with, like friends, right? I rather have like a small group of people in my network than thousands of people. So what I'm saying is that to me it goes back to deepening the relationship. I don't want to have hundreds of relationships. That just seems like a lot and overwhelming. And when we talk about like, oh, we only have this many people following us on Instagram. It's like, well, that's to me and overall, it's okay. It's fine that because we have 100 plus people that are listening to our podcast. And when I'm talking about like the small number of people in my network, it's easier for me to keep up in a sense. Like I can celebrate their wins, I can send them a DM, and I've been able to keep up with my connections that way. And then that's 6 degrees of separation too. Like I've been referred out, like, hey, talk to Sarah. She does this. And to me, that's great. I would rather have a small set of people in my network because I think that for me at least, that's my capacity. And there's other people that have a bigger network, and that is okay. So whatever your capacity is that you're comfortable with, build on those relationships.
I think that is important to maintain. So, with like looking at your own personal life, honestly,
Mhm.
do you have the time to commit to backstory? Earlier this year, I was doing what's called like the Hard 75 challenge, but it was the business version. And so that was 5 new connections, brand new connections every single day. And during that season, it was difficult, but I was able to do it. But if you think about it, that's 150 new people I needed to find in 1 month. That season, I could do it, but I tried to do the same thing during the summer when like all my kids were home and this and that. That was not happening. I barely
Yeah.
found 2 new people to connect with, like capacity is something that needs to be taken into account. But I think another thing while we're talking about it, and it might be the hardest part, is vulnerability
Mm.
with networking. And I think it's something that many of us often avoid because there's always that like line and boundary, but it's hard to build deep relationships without allowing yourself or the other person to be real about what's actually happening in their business as well as their life. So when I'm on group coaching calls or I'm in networking things, I might be the only person that does it, but I have no problem sharing, like, "I have a head cold, my kids are sick, and we're
Yeah.
on the struggle bus today." Like, I'm just happy, like, my win for the week is we are alive and we are
Yeah.
fed and we're in a house. Like,
Yeah.
as silly as that
Exactly.
sounds, I want people to know that I am a person that if you are struggling with something, whether you're a client or not, you can come to me because we're not striving to connect with people who are perfect. We're striving to connect with honesty. And every single deep relationship that you have the opportunity to start with someone has to start with being vulnerable first. And that opens the door to not only personal growth, but as well as professional growth.
You nailed that. Nailed that right there. Talking about, opening up to people. that one question that's when you meet people, especially when you're in-person networking, is when people ask you, what do you do? Instead of like giving your title and you're like, I'm operations manager, I'm a Pinterest strategist. There was one time I said, I forget how I worded it, but I'm like, I'm trying to learn how to play the drums. Like I introduced myself in that way to know that
Mm,
I'm a person. I have hobbies before I'm a business person. Like people say, I'm a mom of two. Okay. But like, who are you as a person? And I've said that a couple times, and I cannot believe I keep forgetting to do that because I think that opens doors and conversations for people to get to know you as a person before they get to know you as a business owner or as a parent. I think we've talked about this before, like with guests, as women, as mothers, we have the identity of like, we're a mom, we own a business, but like, who are you as an actual person? So maybe
mhm.
that could be like a challenge for all of us to start doing is introduce ourselves as like our hobbies instead of like our business.
I had a close friend of mine, he said he had a guest on his podcast, and I think their first introduction to each other, they both had beards, and so they complimented each other's beards. Like that was it. And
That's
that's
cute.
all that they had time for before like the workshop or whatever got started. It's like you got a sweet beard, and then they just somehow stayed in contact. And now they're partnering to be like collaborate on the podcast. But it literally started with something as funny as you have a sweet beard.
Yeah.
So as uncomfortable as that might make someone sound, I think that's a great way to build a connection.
Yeah.
It could be that you're a busy mom, but like, what do y'all do outside of motherhood? Are you still trying to figure that out? Bond in that. Bond in who knows what. There's just so many different things.
Exactly. And I think that's what we need to start doing more. I think we're so like, well, this is what I do, but let's have that as a challenge. Now I'm curious what other people would say. Like, I want to know like how you would introduce yourself while networking. That is not, I'm a business owner. I'm this. Now I'm curious.
So, for our listeners, we covered a lot today. And here's the thing that I know, like through all of it, this isn't just the theory for us as a podcast duo. We've both actively been working on building these kinds of relationships on our businesses. And your challenge, as we said, is like, we want you to do the same. Your homework is to find 3 people and reach out to them this week with no agenda, just genuine connection, see how they're doing, how is life going, find a way to connect with them, and do not talk about sales in any way, shape, or form.
And better yet, send us a message and tell us how introduce yourself. I love conversations. I can talk to you guys all day. Like we can just keep going on and on. And if your team has been feeling a little disconnected lately, or if you're realizing you need to deepen relationships with people you work with every day, reach out to me, send me an email, and let's get a conversation started so that we can get your team connected on a deeper level.
And as always, if anything from this episode resonated with you and you're thinking about how to use Pinterest or organic marketing methods in general to build deeper connections with your ideal clients, not just grow your following, but actually create a community, come hang out with me on Instagram at danas.desk.nc, and I would love to help you utilize these platforms in a very strategic but genuine way.
We thank you all for being here today, and all of our information is going to be in the show notes. Until next time.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If something in this episode gave you a fresh perspective, share it with a friend or send us a DM. We love hearing how these conversations land with you.
And if you're curious about how soft skills can support your next season of growth, we each have more resources to share.
You can find Dana on Instagram at danas.desk.nc for Pinterest strategy and intentional marketing.
And Sarah at Rembert for team development, business leadership, and podcast support.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose
and growing with intention.